This week on Ebert and Roeper.
Or because you were feeling lonely.
Sean Penn and 21 Grams.
You're a coyote. Be wild.
Looney Tunes back in action with Steve Martin.
I'm gonna help you.
And Halle Berry and Gothika. And Halle Berry got me interested in her fate.
She's great in it.
This is the girl that I saw at the bridge. This is the girl.
No.
How is she?
No, Ma.
Where is she?
It's impossible.
That's Halle Berry as a prison psychiatrist who ends up as a prisoner in her own institution in Gothika. We're going to have an early review, and we'll also take another look at Russell Crowe in Master and Commander. Plus, one of my top 10 films of all time is finally on DVD. I'm Roger Ebert.
And I'm Richard Roeper. Sounds like a good show. First up is an early review of 21 Grams, and I think this is one of the most powerful films of the year. It opens next week. Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and Naomi Watts all deliver complex and raw performances in this devastating, time-shifting film from Alejandro González Iñárritu, who directed Amores Perros. Watts plays Christina, a former party girl who becomes a wife and mother. Penn is Paul, a heart patient whose wife desperately wants to get pregnant. And Del Toro plays Jack, a born-again convict trying to play it straight.
Stealing ain't worth it. Going to church, reading the Bible, and believing in Jesus, brother, that's your ticket.
Because of the chronologically jumbled narrative, we know these three strangers will end up at a remote hotel with blood being shed and lives on the line. The connection between Jack and Christina has already been forged when Paul enters Christina's life.
You mind if I join you?
Actually, I was just leaving.
Here you go. Did you know that eating alone can cause kidney damage? And that's bad.
Much happens before Paul reveals to Christina that he didn't approach her at random. In the meantime, he's also dealing with the collapse of his marriage.
We've been a fraud for a long time, Mary.
Oh, yeah? Why didn't you tell me that when you were sick, huh? Or did you expect one of your girlfriends to come and take care of you?
You came back because you wanted to. Don't blame me for that.
I came back to take care of you because I love you.
Or because you were feeling lonely.
The 21 grams of the title refers to the supposed amount of weight the body loses at death. Some say it's the weight of the human soul. Now, a devastating accident drastically alters the lives of the three principal characters and puts them face to face with mortality. The jigsaw puzzle framework of the story keeps us on full alert as we try to piece it all together, but it's also a bit frustrating. You almost wish you were watching on DVD so you could pause and rewind when needed. This film has great performances all around, especially from Naomi Watts in maybe her best role yet.
Well, movie acting doesn't get any better than this, but you know, as I was watching the film, I was thinking that when it comes out on DVD, you'll be able to look at it chronologically the way you could do with Memento, and then things would seem to build in a different way.
Yeah.
But what he's doing here is very interesting because at any given moment, we have more information than the characters. And so what they're doing takes on an additional poignancy and depth and sadness and sorrow that is really very effective. And I like the way that he plays with time and is fascinated by how fate is waiting for us at the end of every story.
Well, it's interesting because this isn't just a gimmick, and you're right, we know more than the characters do, but we're also sometimes behind the story because we're not quite sure why we've seen what we've seen, and it all comes together. It's not just like he's doing this, like, hey, look what I can do, I can move things around here, and the performances are so strong throughout, because of course the characters know different things at different times. You've got these three great actors who are all together because of this one terrible thing that happened.
The movie is like a demonstration of how you understand people differently depending upon how much you know about where they come from and where they're going. Okay, The Singing Detective is about a man creating fantasies to escape from pain, and it was written by a man who knew all about pain. The British playwright Dennis Potter suffered from a severe form of psoriasis, which inspired an 8-hour BBC series, also called The Singing Detective, and now there's a feature film that he wrote right before he died. Robert Downey Jr. stars as Dan Dark, whose skin disease makes every moment an agony. Desperate to distract himself, he turns the people in his life into characters in a pulp thriller.
Put it back in the drawer. Unless you want to hold between your eyes at the wind from your ass can whistle through.
That's Jeremy Northam as one of the noir characters in Dark's Daydreams. Sometimes he imagines himself in a movie musical. Katie Holmes plays his real-life nurse and also stars in his fantasies.
Please turn on your magic beam. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
His psychiatrist thinks maybe his suffering is all in his mind. See if you can recognize the actor who is playing the shrink.
Giver. Sucker. Mouth. Fangs. Wolf. Whistle. Scream.
Silence.
Young.
Green.
Old.
Mick Jagger.
That's Mel Gibson, who also produced the film. The Singing Detective is a disjointed mess, but I think it has to be. It's about a man whose life has become unbearable, except when he can jerk himself away into escapist daydreams. They don't fit together, they don't add up because they're not supposed to. This isn't a movie about detectives or musical comedies, but a movie about pain. And Robert Downey Jr., who knows about suffering, does an extraordinary job as this man whose skin is his enemy. They say you can fight disease with laughter, but here's a movie that attacks it with anger and utter contempt. I thought it was difficult, but bold and brave, and I give it a thumbs up.
It is bold and brave, and I think I liked about 49% of it, so I'm going to give it the most reluctant thumbs down I can. For a lot of the reasons you said, it is just a little bit too much of a disjointed mess, and I understand what you're saying, but there's just too much going on, because we also have him going back to his past and what happened with his mother and him having to leave his family unit and the stuff going on with Robin Wright Penn, and then there's the musical numbers, and then there's the stuff with Mel Gibson, and it's just too much
Dennis
at
Potter
some point.
did this as an 8-hour BBC series.
That's exactly right.
He wanted it to be a movie because he correctly knew that very few people in this country are going to rent the 8 hours of tapes. And he was probably right about that. But he maybe, because the story is very important to him, maybe he just tried to push in too much.
It's a little too compressed for me, and I do have to say, though, you are absolutely right. Mel Gibson is almost unrecognizable and a very good performance, and Robert Downey Jr. is amazing. Okay, Jim Carrey rules the universe when we come back.
Ebert and Roeper's Thumbs Up Video is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. At the movies or at home, Raisinets.
In Bruce Almighty, Jim Carrey returns to the rubber-bodied antics that made him a star. My thumbs up video is this uneven but occasionally hilarious effort that contains elements of Groundhog Day, It's a Wonderful Life, and Carrey's own film, Liar, Liar. Here he plays a downtrodden TV reporter who walks a few miles in God's shoes. But who cares about starving kids or deadly diseases when you can lift a woman's skirt at will, circumvent traffic jams, and teach the dog how to use the toilet? The DVD extras, as you might expect from a Carrey film, include loads of outtakes and deleted scenes that showcase his manic brilliance.
Hey, I dig that crazy yarmulke, man. I went for the fishnet, but yours has chutzpah.
He works with the special effects squad to try a number of variations on the same scene. And in the deleted scene, Carrey sends up Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A lot of DVD outtakes and deleted scenes show the stars cracking up at stuff that's not all that funny. With Jim Carrey, the cutting room floor material is just as good as the main feature.
My video pick this week is so special to me that it's on my list of the 10 greatest films of all time, and it was also named in the Sight and Sound poll of the world's critics and directors. It's Tokyo Story, made 50 years ago this year by the great Japanese director Yasujiro Ozu, and I've never seen it without somebody crying in the audience. Sometimes it was me. It's a simple story. An old couple comes to Tokyo to visit their children, but the visit goes badly. The kids are just too busy to have much time for the old folks, who return home, and then the grandmother dies, and now it's the turn of the children to visit their father. Ozu was famous for his visual style, which achieved a kind of Zen simplicity. The second disc includes a documentary showing him at work. His camera almost never moved, and it was usually at the eye level of a Japanese person seated on a floor mat. Tokyo Story is out this week on 2 discs from the Criterion Collection, including lots of extras to celebrate the centenary of Ozu's birth. I think that sooner or later, everyone who loves the movies discovers Ozu, who distills the cinema to what is human and universal and true.
Coming up next, Halle Berry, Penelope Cruz, and Robert Downey Jr. again, this time in Gothika.
Division, follow me! For England, for home, and for the prize!
Also opening this weekend is Master and Commander, which earned 2 big thumbs up on last week's show. set in 1805, Peter Weir's majestic yet intimate epic is one of the most compelling dramas ever filmed on the high seas, with an Oscar-worthy performance from Russell Crowe as Captain Jack Aubrey. We believe men would die for him. We believe him as a brave and crafty commander, but we also see his flaws. Like Tom Hanks in the mid-1990s, Crowe just keeps turning out nomination-worthy work year after year.
You know, as you think back over his recent roles in The Insider and Gladiator and Beautiful Mind, there is nothing in common between those characters, and now here we have basically an action picture. But it's not an action picture. It's a picture about personality, about these two friends and the way they deal with this situation. And he just really has good taste in material.
He has good taste in material, and he has the range to pull it off.
Yes, he does, yeah.
Okay, our next movie is Looney Tunes. He probably could have been in this, too. This was called Looney Tunes Back in Action, featuring Brendan Fraser and Jenna Elfman, who were probably paid more than co-stars Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny. This is a cheerful and self-referential romp blending animation with live action in a non-stop quest for silly laughs. The in-joke is that Bugs and Daffy are contract players for Warner Brothers, and they interact with studio employees who treat them like real people, or at least real wisecracking cartoon animals.
What kind of performance do you call that? You made me sound like a total space cadet, man.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I was trying to be real to your character.
If you like goof on me in the sequel, I'm coming after you.
Yeah. I'm glad to see the real Shaggy and Scooby agree with my pan of the feature release of Scooby-Doo. Fraser plays hapless studio security guard DJ Drake, who heads to Vegas to rescue his kidnapped movie star father, who's also a spy.
After it, stunt boy.
Oh, man.
Jump! Jump!
And Steve Martin employs impeccable timing as the nerdy and evil chairman of the Acme Corporation.
Just go take a shower and don't come back till you smell better. And be careful, there's some men moving a safe out there, and I don't want you to... And be careful of the box of fireworks, because... I suppose I should mention the plate glass window.
Looney Tunes Back in Action is not the most seamless marriage of animation and live action. Sometimes the actors seem to be kind of looking off in the distance or holding their arms out, knowing the cartoon characters will be filled in later. And there are more smiles than outright laughs, but there are a lot of smiles. Fraser's rubbery charm is perfectly suited for silly movies like George of the Jungle and Looney Tunes, and Elfman does a nice job as the sidekick. And special mention has to go to Joe Alasky, who honors the late Mel Blanc with his uncanny voice characterizations of Bugs, Daffy, Tweety, and a host of other animated favorites. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up for me, too. And you're right, it's not seamless. It's not like Roger Rabbit or some of these other films. But on the other hand, it has a nice goofy charm about it. I didn't mean to mention Goofy. He comes from a different studio. But I liked the idea that Daffy and Bugs are actually, you know, annoyed about their contracts, and that Bugs makes more money than Daffy. And I always kind of wondered how that was in the Toon universe, and now I know.
Yeah, it's great. You see the dynamic between these two characters. And we go to Vegas, and you get a little Jeff Gordon, the race car driver's in there, and you get Heather Locklear. I mean, every scene, they pepper it with something to keep us amused on a couple of different levels.
Okay, now another early review. As Gothika opens, Halle Berry is a prison psychiatrist who thinks she knows all about a patient's hallucinations. But then, one dark and stormy night, she takes a detour on the way home and almost hits a girl who seems to be standing in the middle of the road. She jumps out to help the girl, and that's her last memory until she wakes up inside her own prison as a prisoner charged with murder. Her colleague, played by Robert Downey Jr., breaks some very bad news.
I have to tell you something. Something very difficult.
No. Please don't tell me there's something wrong with Doug.
Miranda. Doug is dead. You killed him.
Yes, her husband has been found brutally murdered, and all the evidence points to her, but she has a complete memory gap of 3 days, and ironically, the only person she can talk to and trust is one of her own former patients, played by Penelope Cruz.
You are not a doctor in here.
And even if you tell the truth,
no one will listen. You know why? Because you're crazy.
What is illusion and what is reality? And is the ghostly girl on the road still trying to communicate with her? Well, of course, Gothika is preposterous, and I still don't really understand how her husband was murdered or how anyone could stage manage the terrible things that happened in the course of that murder, but I don't care, because Gothika somehow got past my defenses and really worked. There are some movies where you bring your common sense along, and some movies where you leave your common sense at home, and here the explanation for all the dreadful events is irrelevant because the movie works like your worst nightmare. Others are doing unto you what you did unto them.
Well, I have to bring a little common sense here, and that's why I'm giving this movie thumbs down. First of all, Halle Berry, it's a great performance.
Yes, it is.
This is a stylish thriller. It looks really good. But, I mean, you got a psychiatrist who's accused of murder, and they put her in the same facility where she treated patients. And that's
with her own former patients.
Just so outlandish. And also, we have seen several movies. I don't want to give away what's going on here, but we've seen several movies in the last few years where female ghosts are trying to communicate with people in the living world, and it's always for the same reason. And I'm kind of tired of that. And there are just too many howlers here. There's a moment where Halle Berry's on the phone and she's telling somebody, I'm not delusional, I'm possessed. And I'm sorry, I laughed out loud at that. You're not supposed to be laughing at that moment.
Well, if I were teaching a journalism class, I would, as an exercise, have the students write a negative and a positive review of this movie, because I can imagine my negative review of this movie, and I could take it apart.
Yeah.
I really could,
You just went along for the ride.
on a logical basis. But you know what? It worked.
I
have to be
saying,
honest enough as a critic to say that after a certain point, I really got involved and I was carried along for the ride, and it was effective, and Halle Berry got me interested in her fate, and so it doesn't...
She's great in this.
Because I still would have any idea, really, how that murder took place or how all of that stuff was set up. I don't understand it.
I do, and I guess that's the problem. If there were any other answer than the one I was afraid it was going to be all along, I probably would have recommended this film, because it really does have a great look, and there were a lot of chills, but just too outrageous for me to recommend.
Okay, when we come back, Tupac Shakur narrates his own life story from beyond the grave.
And love.
Visit our website at ebertandroper.tv or at movies.com.
Tupac Shakur lived fast and died young, shot down in Las Vegas in 1996. He was a gifted rap artist and actor in movies like Juice and Gridlock. Tupac Resurrection is a documentary that incredibly is narrated by Tupac himself. Shakur talked openly and honestly over the years about his early life and his career, and the filmmakers are able to combine those interviews with images that create a vivid record of his life. His mother, Afeni Shakur, was a crucial early influence.
My mother was a Black Panther, and she was really involved in the movement.
We watch his steady rise in the worlds of music and movies as he talks about some new friends.
Jada's my heart, you know what I mean? She will be my friend for my whole life.
I remember seeing Gridlocked at Sundance after Shakur was murdered and feeling very deeply that we had lost a young man who could have achieved amazing things. The movie shows how Tupac's brand of gangster rap became a dangerous world as the images in his songs and street reality began to mirror each other. And it's amazing how Shakur seems to have recorded everything necessary to tell his own life story.
Thumbs up for me as well. You know, this is actually a mainstream traditional documentary. It doesn't judge Tupac. It doesn't turn him into this hero who had no faults. It lets his words and the film about him speak for itself. And you're right, you're so right about the irony of his life. Here's a kid whose mother was a crack addict, but she did her best, and he went to the Baltimore School for Performing Arts, and he kind of avoided getting into crime until he got into the rap world. That's when he started getting all these arrests and getting into these wars, this East Coast, West Coast nonsense.
He has that great line where he says, I never had a record until I had a record.
Yeah, and it's just, exactly, and it's just, you know, that's the real sad legacy of rap, which can be such a vibrant form of music and a great form of expression, but so many of these rappers really do embrace this thug life, and they end up shooting each other. And you know, this guy getting shot on the street in Las Vegas is no more glamorous than Jim Morrison dying in a bathtub.
A complete waste. You know, people are probably going to think that this is in some way an exploitation film or a cheapie or something. This is an A-level, first-class documentary about an American life, and the fact that we always hear his voice is really uncanny in its effect.
It's amazing stuff. Okay, we'll be back with more in a moment.
Next week is brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet? Next week on Ebert and Roeper, Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai and Mike Myers in The Cat in the Hat.
Okay, recapping this week's movies. 2 thumbs up for 21 Grams. It opens next week. We split on The Singing Detective. 2 thumbs up for Looney Tunes back in action. We split again on Gothika. It opens next week. 2 thumbs up for Tupac Resurrection. And Master and Commander got 2 thumbs up on last week's show. It opens this weekend.
Remember, you can hear all our recent reviews at ebertandroper.tv or at movies.com and read us in print at suntimes.com. And until next week, the balcony is closed.
You know, another thing about Gothika, the last 2 minutes, the ending of the film, what was that about?
That is about how movies always end with something else.
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me either.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
there's a logical ending, and then they keep going, and there's this weird thing.